Hi, Dr. Bowers, or whoever is watching this video. This is my demo video for my final project for organization of programming languages. So my final project was to implement a REPL, read eval print loop, for MyPL, similar to the Python REPL that they have. So I'll just kind of quickly start by showing you how the user can enter the REPL. And so we'll just go MyPL, and there's a new flag that I implemented titled Start MyPL. And when they enter that, it gives a little instructional message that kind of explains what the REPL can do and how they can interact with it. So the REPL isn't fully functioning as well as I was hoping it to by this point. And I'll show you that when you enter a specific, any line of code, any line of syntactically correct MyPL code into the REPL, we can see that we're getting errors and it's not working as I intended it to currently. So instead of kind of going through a demo and showing you different things that you can enter into the REPL, I'm going to kind of walk through my thought process and how I went about implementing the REPL and kind of go through a few of the changes that I made. I go more in depth into this into the final project report, but this will just kind of be a quick walkthrough. So obviously the first thing I did was create a suite of unit tests that I thought would best outline how I wanted to how I wanted the REPL to work and how it could kind of take in different MyPL code. So I'll run those tests really quick just to show you what I had in mind. Obviously, not all of them are passing, but we have all sorts of different simple and more complex tests that a user could enter into the REPL that I wanted to have working. So the first thing I kind of did when I was thinking about this project was how I'm going to enter the REPL for the user. And so that's how I came up with this flag for Start MyPL. Similar to how Python has its keyword Python to enter their REPL from the command line. That is kind of that was my thought process there. I needed to add two new classes to this, to our previous code. And those were the REPL class and the REPL statement class. The REPL class works in a similar way to the program class, where the program has a list of a vector of struct defs and a vector of fun defs. The REPL has a vector of statements, which are defined as REPL statements. And so I needed to implement those two classes into the AST parser, the semantic checker, the code generator, implementing all the visit functions, and things like that. So the other thing I did was change the syntax for a REPL statement to kind of distinguish it from a normal statement in MyPL. And for that, I created a new token, which I implemented the colon as a token. And so as you saw in the demo I did of that first line of code, each REPL statement has to start with a colon and end with a colon. And so this meant that I had to go into the Lexer and actually add that new token and things like that. So the next thing I did was I needed a way to, in regular MyPL code, in order for it to be syntactically correct, there needs to be a main function for it to be syntactically and semantically correct. But in the MyPL REPL, the goal was to be able to implement and have the user just type in freestanding statements or expressions of MyPL code and have them be interpreted and evaluated and executed without the need for that main function. So it was a little bit more syntactically free. And so for that, what I needed to do was add a flag to the VM. And I can show you that from the MyPL program. Right here, the VM has a flag called inREPL, which I can set to true when we're looking at this specific flag. And what that does is I use it as a check in the VM to basically distinguish between, are we in the REPL or are we in regular MyPL? And if we're in regular MyPL, then we still have that main that check for if we have a main function. But if we're in the REPL, then we don't need to we can just bypass that check. So there's a quick outline of a few of the changes that I made. As I said before, I go more in depth in the final report. But yeah, there's not much to demo because it is currently not fully functional. And with more time, I would be able to implement some of the or pass some of these more simple and complex single line tests, as well as a few multi-line tests that I created, which was kind of the next step in the process after single line. So yeah, thank you.